And so the reports of Stanford's demise greatly exaggerated, I believe. Mark Rogers TV just a few minutes after the Cardinal defeated Oregon State in Corvallis 42-24. And we are joined by Don King from Last Word on Sports to help us break it down. Don, I was surprised, of course, thanks so much for joining us, but surprised basically in that first quarter and a half that the Stanford offensive line wasn't taking hold and pushing their way down the field. Oregon State very stout up front, but the more the Cardinal leaned on the lighter weight Beavers, it took hold in the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, definitely. That vaunted recruiting class from a couple of years ago, those, all of those guys are from that same class, all 5 of the starters, and you can see they've grown up a bit. And even having lost one to the NFL last year, the line looked really good as the game wore on, and it was just a classic ground and pound type performance. Very clearly the coaching staff trying to keep the pressure off of Kevin Hogan's tender left ankle. Some good shots taken and good, creative and aggressive play calling like so many of my fellow alums have been clamoring for, mixed in there. But at the end of the day, this looked like 2013 again. It's like, let's line them all up and let's knock them off the ball and let's get some backs into space and, let them run for outrageous amounts of yardage. It was actually fun to watch, and a bit of a throwback. And candidly, Hogan was making all the right decisions, and the receivers did what they needed to do when given the opportunities too.
I'm entertained by watching an offense like Stanford that is so versatile. They can throw it when they need to. Of course, we saw that more last week against USC, but I enjoy not seeing the read option every single play with the quarterback riding the running back into the belly of the defense and then making a decision over and over and over every college football game you see. So I enjoy seeing the offense. And, of course, Christian McCaffrey, you've talked him up for a while, and he's fun to watch.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, electric, whether running or catching. I'm trying to do the math to get his total offense number. I mean, he only had 38 yards receiving, but that was on one catch, which was a pretty 206. Yeah, but he ran 30 times for 206 yards. We only had the one reception for 38 yards and almost scored on that. And then he had a couple of kick returns for another 56 yards. So the young man had himself a 300-yard day. That's kind of ridiculous. He is something else. We're going to have to do something to get him, to get the coaching staff to let him actually punch one in sometime after they get down the field. Saw a whole lot of Ramon Wright short runs, a couple of Barry J. Sanders, kind of mid-distance, and then the long 65-yard scamper. We got to get McCaffrey into the end zone to pay off some of the heavy lifting he was doing.
And Don, the 2 long runs that Sanders had, he showed initially the quickness in the hole and got to the secondary, and then he just took guys on. He was almost looking for contact and just finished off the runs with brute force.
Yes, he did. That first touchdown, I did a double take. I thought that was Wright running over 3 guys at the goal line and not 26 Barry J, pushing people into the end zone. And then on the long one, he showed incredible balance, not running out of bounds. But before that, just basically pushed a guy off him and pushed him to the ground and just kept trucking. So young man showed some toughness too. Huge coming out party for 2 very highly touted young running backs that Stanford's had. It's hard to believe because it doesn't seem possible, but Barry J, this is his senior year, so glad to see him get a chance to show out a little bit. And McCaffrey is just spectacular.
Don, of course, we know that toughness in a football locker room gains all sorts of credit. And for Kevin Hogan, it's not just physical toughness like he showed tonight. It's been over the last year, mental and emotional toughness. And even beyond the talent of being a franchise quarterback, that goes a long way in establishing yourself as the guy that runs this team.
Yeah, definitely. Interesting stat that I think would breeze by a lot of folks. So with tonight's win, Kevin Hogan now is 27 in his Stanford career. Two things are significant about that. He's now within 5 wins of Andrew Luck's all-time school record for most wins by a starting quarterback. And he's now actually, well, for the next 12 hours anyway, he's all alone in first place among starting quarterbacks who are still active at the college level. He just passed Braxton Miller, who most likely won't get any more starts as a quarterback. And he just broke his tie with Connor Cook, who, of course, have a chance to move back into a tie tomorrow afternoon. So, we've talked about this before. You can love Hogan, you can hate him, but you can't deny his toughness, and you can't deny that the kid has been a winner. He's done really, really well throughout his college career.
Don King from Last Word on Sports. I know, Don, it would be torture if I did not ask you about Blake Martinez.
Yeah, I wouldn't have let you. We're not going to wrap this up. I was scurrying and scouring the net looking for the defensive stats and totals. I came up empty before we got on the call, but I got to tell you, that kid was everywhere. I mean, that was one of the best individual defensive performances I've seen by a college football player since, Jadeveon Clowney was knocking people's helmets off a few years back. He was all over. He was defending passes. He was making tackles. He was, burrowing the quarterback into the ground. That was astonishing. What a performance he put on tonight, and God bless him. And during a game when Stanford's defensive line continues to just get decimated. No Brennan Scarlett after the second quarter. Aziz Shatu seems to have re-injured a calf that's been really, really problematic for him for a while. I heard he was on the sideline warming up, did not play again, and kind of wasn't needed. And of course, Harrison Phillips has already been lost for the season with an ACL. So that D-line is really, really thin. Will be interesting just to see what happens going forward. But tip of the cap to Lance Anderson, the defensive coordinator, for finding a way to patch that thing together and make it work with all of the losses that were suffered during this game tonight along the Stanford defensive front.
And of course, we're only, 5 games deep into the season, 4 games deep into the season,
Yep.
4 games deep into the season. So yeah, that hurts. But in looking at the big picture of what this team could accomplish, the point I was going to make is that Northwestern game, hey, give all the credit to the Wildcats. They got the job done on that particular day. But this is a good reason not to jump the gun on an evaluation of any particular team, because that definitely was, again, Northwestern won the game, but Stanford definitely did not show up for whatever reason. The travel, the time of the game, the whole deal was difficult. But this is certainly a different team in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, no question. Look good, seem to be clicking on all cylinders. The real concern is just the defense. I'll tell you, seemed to grow up tonight, particularly in the defensive backfield. Elijah Holder played well through the course of the game, and I thought Alameen Murphy, despite getting beat on that long touchdown pass, made far more really, really solid plays at that opposite cornerback than not. And Ronnie Harris is also a beast. You would want to work away from him if you possibly can, because he's a 5th-year senior, very seasoned team captain, great leader in the locker room too, by all accounts, and plays very physical. Had a great game tonight as well. So if I had defensive game balls to give out, yeah, Blake Martinez would get the first one. Ronnie Harris would get one too, though. He looked fantastic tonight.
Hey, Don, before I let you go, love to get your opinion, not just on the Stanford Cardinal, but all of college football. And for tonight, this Oregon State team that is not going to be a factor in the Pac-12 North this year, but at the same time, for more than a half, looked the part of a pretty good football team. And this Seth Collins at quarterback, he's a freshman.
Yeah.
20 for 34, 275, no interceptions against a good defense, 34 attempts. They've got something to work with.
No question. And he's incredibly electric, incredibly elusive, can extend plays all day long. He's hard to get on the ground. And as you said, he's a true freshman. That kid is going to be dynamite a year, 2, 3 years down the road. So he's going to be something. And once the whole program kind of kicks in, you can feel the attitude change kind of coming around. I don't think they quite have the horses yet. Maybe need another year or two of that strength and conditioning to really kind of kick in. But good, solid hire for Oregon State. I think they're going to be very pleased 2, 3 years down the road with where their program is.
Don King from Last Word on Sports. Don, this is great, getting the analysis right after the game from you. So I had a lot of fun listening to you break things down right when the clock hit 0.
Oh, thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. And I'll tell you, to the point you made, that Northwestern loss hurt a lot. Still hurts many of us. But the schedule going forward is pretty favorable. Only 8 games left on the calendar, regular season. 6 of them are at home at Stanford Stadium. So Stanford's 3-1, has only played 1 home game so far against UCF. But gets 6 of the last 8 at home, and the 2 road games are Washington State and Colorado. So not exactly the upper division of the conference. All of the really, really tough games that we anticipate the rest of the way, folks are going to have to come visit Stanford in Palo Alto. So advantage to the Card on that front.
And 1 extra day to rest up for Arizona, and then it's UCLA the next week. So 2 extremely important games in the Pac-12 coming up. So
absolutely.
All right, Stanford at 3-1. Don, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Appreciate it.